San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here with Bryan Alvarez for the next 2 hours on Christmas night, talking pro wrestling as well as mixed martial arts. Bryan, how's Christmas?
Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly.
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. I thought I wasn't even on yet.
Oh, yeah, you're on.
Well, yeah, Christmas has been very good. Lots of eating the last couple of days. Lots of gift giving and opening, so things are good.
Cool. I didn't get any, the day's not over, but I did not get any bad wrestling gifts this year.
I'm thinking that perhaps our respective families understand how much wrestling we have to put up with, because I got nothing related to wrestling except for people from the newsletter that sent stuff in. But my family, nothing.
Yeah, me neither. So that's cool. It was quite the interesting week, I think. If we didn't do the cover wrestling, I think that we might have to cover bodybuilding.
That's yeah.
What a crazy world.
Yep. Craig Titus is busted for murder. He's being charged with. And I was actually watching the news story. There was a video feed of the news story, I guess in Massachusetts or wherever he got arrested. And apparently his wife, they got nabbed when she went to get a pedicure. And she dyed her hair red. She was in getting her toes done, and they nabbed her. So that was the end of them. She dyed her hair, he shaved his head, and they tried to avoid detection.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I don't know, the idea of Craig Titus trying to avoid detection.
He tried.
He tried, but what can you do?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of tough when you, how many guys that are,
it's like the Incredible Hulk trying to avoid detection.
Yeah, that's right. I know, especially when you're all over the news and everything like that. Unbelievable. What an unbelievable story there. I guess, he...
And there was a wrestling, or I guess a sports entertainment tie-in, because him and Phil Brony had, of course, a war of words for a long, long time.
For over a year.
Oh, yeah. Threatened to get in fights with each other, and both, of course, said it was the other guy's fault the fight never took place, and now it will not take place.
No. Well, we're going to go ahead to a break. There was actually, we'll talk about this coming back, there was actually almost another fight very similar to this that nearly took place, except it didn't take place. And we'll talk about that after the break. We also talk about Armageddon pay-per-view and a lot of other subjects. We'll also be taking your phone calls. You can call us at 1-800-878-PLAY, and this might be one of the easier nights to get through because it's Christmas. So anyway, we'll be back with all of this right after this. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Bryan Alvarez at Figure 4 Weekly. We're here on Christmas night talking about pro wrestling, the week. And as far as that goes, the year of pro wrestling. We actually had to start in pro wrestling during the week. I think this was Tuesday. I guess there had been some internet thing with a bodybuilder claiming that mixed martial arts was those guys weren't real fighters, and I guess bodybuilders are, and claimed that he wanted to fight this mixed martial arts fighter out of Canada named Paul Lazenby, and the bodybuilder's name was Eric Newt, and they were going back and forth.
Paul Lazenby.
Paul Lazenby.
He Leviathan.
Is that? No, it couldn't be the same guy.
I'm almost positive it's the same guy.
Really?
Because he did a show for us for ICW, and Tim was very, very upset at this other worker. And Paul, who I guess had done some fighting in Japan...
then you got the right guy, because Paul Lazenby's from Vancouver.
Yep, went in and destroyed this young man, and that was the last we ever saw of him. But, yeah, that's Paul Lazenby.
That would be the same guy. Okay, so Paul Lazenby of Vancouver said that, in fact, mixed martial arts is very effective when it comes to fighting. Probably more than bodybuilding, and they went back and forth, and they ended up that they wanted to fight, but this guy was in Chicago and Paul was in Vancouver, so Paul said that he would call up one of his friends, either Brian Gassaway or Shoney Carter, who live in Chicago, who would be glad to fight him. And so they had this whole thing. And Eric Newt's about 250 pounds, and Shoney Carter, fights at 170, so he's probably a 180-pound guy, basically. And anyway, they were going to fight in Chicago, and the short story is that Eric Newt never came, and that was the end of the story.
There you go.
So he had to suffer the humiliation of being harassed and called names on the internet after, in fact, he was the one who started it. So I don't know. I like I said, the bodybuilding world is I guess it's all those drugs that makes people deluded or something. I don't know.
Well, I think if you've never fought or done any sort of combat sport, but you can bench a lot of weight and you're really, really huge, you sort of have this idea that you can just kill anybody.
Well, you can kill people who are smaller that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're I always kind of laughed at the Craig Titus-Phil Baroni feud.
Oh, because Phil Baroni has fast hands.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing. If you've ever been in a fight, of course that's boxing. It's everything's different. But if you've ever been in a boxing match with a guy who has really fast hands, it doesn't matter how strong you are. I mean, it's very intimidating. It's very intimidating.
And I mean, Titus had a wrestling background, but that was high school wrestling.
Everyone wrestled in high school.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about a guy that had a high school wrestling background against a guy who, had pro fighting experience.
I know.
So that was not the best fight to pick, I don't think.
Well, that's like I said. That's there's something in the water there that deludes some of those people.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. You seen the Eddie Guerrero book or the Shawn Michaels book yet?
I have not.
Okay. I have both. I've actually read the Eddie Guerrero book cover to cover already.
Wow.
Very good. Kind of what you would expect. The stuff about his downward spiral is really good.
I read the chapter on the accident, and that's quite the read.
Yeah, I mean it's a book that it's an easy read. You'll read it pretty quick, and probably won't want to put it down. I will say, in the end, in their rush to get it out, or not to to not miss the deadline, so to speak, of the original deadline, they didn't, aside from this, one page, and it really wasn't even one page. It was really a couple of paragraphs by Vince McMahon, which didn't say anything at all. I mean, there was literally nothing in the book after. I mean, the book pretty much ends with WrestleMania of 2004, not 2005. So you're already a year, more than a year and a half out of date. There's an epilogue, which is like a couple of pages where he kind of mentions, well, after I, won the title, I did end up losing to JBL and some things like that. So it's somewhat touched on that he lost the title to JBL, but I mean, it's like the whole last year and a half of his life is not even touched on, and considering the circumstances and everything like that, I think well, if it was me, I'd have made a different choice, and my choice would be to finish the book.
Mm-hmm. And,
I mean, some of the stuff they couldn't finish, but, whether it would have been a last chapter, written by Chris Benoit or by anyone, for that matter. It was
anyone except Vince McMahon.
Yeah, probably not Vince McMahon. But, I mean, but I'm not talking about like a one-page, we all loved Eddie, he worked really hard and he had a passion for wrestling stuff. I mean, you pick this book up, and I mean, you really don't, there's nothing in there about anything about the last year of his life, his death, anything. And I thought that, considering the timing of when it came out, which is Tuesday, I just felt that, I mean, I understand that the books aren't going to be totally up to date because that's the nature of books, but there were circumstances here that I think demanded more. And like a lot of things in regard to that, I don't think they cared. And that's just, I mean, they did and they didn't, if you know what I mean. They cared about getting it out fast.
They cared about the Christmas season selling books.
Yeah.
I mean, is it really that hard? Well, I mean.
Well, I don't know if it's hard to add another chapter at that late a date. It may have been very hard. Obviously, they could add that one page. But then it would, given the date, and everything that happened and the turnaround, it'd been pretty hard to add that chapter. But the book was definitely, it was lacking because of not having it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the thing. when the book was over, I'm going like, this is a pretty darn good book, yet the most important part of the story is not in the book.
Well, we did have someone here that just wrote in and said that now they can do the paperback version and, bonus chapter.
Yeah. I wonder if, because obviously the book was done to come out much, much earlier, being that they finished it, like last year's WrestleMania. I'm wondering if that author, it was Michael, and I forgot his last name, he's the guy who did the Hardy's book and Lita's book. So actually, he's done very well with the books because those were good books as well. I was just wondering if he had kept in contact with Eddie and could have pulled together another thing, or because it's going to be pretty hard to talk. You could talk to people around Eddie, but you can't talk to Eddie about the last year and a half. And Eddie, that was a very important year and a half.
Well, I think you could really talk a lot to Ray about the whole build up to SummerSlam from WrestleMania of this year.
You can definitely talk to people that he was talking with, and it wouldn't be hard. I mean, that's what I did.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just kind of my thought. But as far as the book itself, what was in it was very good. Sean book, I read the first page and I'm already ready. I'm already ready to write about it.
You got to do the comparison, the review, the Brett DVD and the Sean book, and actually preferably the Russo book as well, all in
one issue.
I was gonna say one issue, but
to me,
maybe 1 month.
On the Brett DVD, I watched it a couple months back, long before it came out, and when it was over, because I was thinking, I'm going to write about this and I'm going to do a story on it, maybe the week before it comes out, and when it was over, it was like, I don't really have anything to write about. It's all on DVD.
Yeah.
There was nothing. I mean, there were no glaring factual errors that hit me. There was no real problem. I thought, yeah, this was his career, and it's a pretty good thing. I mean, like with Sean, I don't know what to say. And Russo,
Well, let me ask the question about Sean, because I've been wondering this quite a bit.
Okay.
I mean, that was really during a period where Sean was living quite the life. I mean, how much of it do you think can be having any idea what the hell was going on and writing this book and sort of believing what he's talking about, as opposed to just being totally full of it?
I think most of it. Don't you?
Yeah, that's kind of the impression that I got.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I think it's how he saw things. It's just interesting how he saw things.
Yeah, because if I wrote a book like about my own life in 1996, I'd screw the whole thing up, and I wasn't living that sort of life either.
Okay, but here's the thing though. When he gets mad at people who were saying that he didn't really hurt his knee, I think he does know what happened there.
Well, there is that, yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, we're gonna get to a break. We'll be back with more. Start taking phone calls as well. 1-800-878-PLAY. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And Bryan, we haven't talked since Sunday in Armageddon. And what'd you think?
I actually totally drew a blank on Oh, Tim White. That is the one thing. That is the one thing I remember from the show.
That's bad because quite frankly, that should have been a minor part of the show that shouldn't have even been on the show in the first place.
No, I mean, even if you take away everything, even remotely, tasteless about it, if it was just any sort of angle, you still shouldn't have aired the angle on the show after they'd already bought it. You know what I mean? Shouldn't have been aired on Friday.
It shouldn't have aired.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
that one has no. There's certain things. If it was an angle to show how dangerous Hell in a Cell is, yes, it should have aired on Friday. But it didn't do that.
No, it was just stupid.
It was just stupid. It was someone's idea of comedy that, from what I gather, almost everyone thought wasn't funny, but by God, Vince did, and we saw it. We had to watch it, and the people just groaned. And, I mean, one of the things about this one is that, I think that a lot of people, because they've been doing so many tasteless angles, one after another to the point where it's numbing and to the point where you almost don't care. people forget an important point, and that is that, you know, it's like they're going, oh, God, why do you complain about this kind of stuff? And it's like, the point is not bad. I mean, bad taste. Actually, it is bad taste in this case. But the point is, this particular one killed a show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they never got it back. That Undertaker-Orton match, I thought, was really a good match. But if you judged it by crowd reaction, it wasn't, because the people never got the taste of that other thing out of their mouth. And they killed that, that poor Juventud Kid Cash match. Although I think at the position where it was, that match was hopeless to begin with. But I did want to mention one thing about that match. Like sometimes I think that not just people, but wrestlers and a lot of people kind of over-analyze why, like, a crowd doesn't get into a match. It's like, well, they did too many high spots, or, well, if they did this or they did that. There was, like, absolutely nothing that those two could have done. They could have jumped off a balcony. They could have done the most perfect technical match. And the people had decided that they did not want to see those two men. And, I mean, and they're good wrestlers. It's not like they were green guys or anything like that. I mean, they went out there and I felt, both of those guys pretty much in a 9 or 10 minute match or however long they had, they tried everything different way to get people to care about the match. And the people were just saying, we don't care. And it was a good match.
Yeah. And, the thing that worries me also is, I mean, you would think that after that killed the show, they would learn something from it. But no, this angle is probably going to continue.
Well, if it continues, what? I mean, if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Well, I'm just looking at it like
it's already done its damage.
If Vince found this so funny, I mean, God knows the storyline could be that Tim White continually tries to kill himself different ways and always fails, and Vince gets a good chuckle each time.
Well,
I mean, what else can you do with this if it's going to continue?
I mean, the one thing about WWE that a lot of people have not seen, and I don't even think people in the company have seen, and that is that if, I mean, the company itself from a financial standpoint, it does look good, but the reason it looks good is because they keep expanding into new international markets. If you talk about their domestic markets, the United States business, and I don't care what the TV ratings say, I mean, I'm talking about people who pay to see the shows, people who pay to see the pay-per-views, you would be alarmed, actually, at the drop in the last year and a half on the pay-per-views especially. And to me, it's like before you would go, well, if people give them a sign that this isn't the direction they want, then, they'll go, okay, we're going by what the audience tells us. But they are ignoring it because they choose to, or because they decided that they don't want to see it, or whatever. I mean, this has actually been an amazing couple of months and an amazing year. If you look back, hindsight in wrestling, I mean, that's not unusual. I mean, I've saw, every promotion that's gone out of business, and these guys are not going out of business like the other ones. It was actually the same attitude when business fell and fell and fell, and people go, business is falling. I don't think that any of them ever learned from the fact that business was falling. They just went out of business.
Yeah. And this, ever since October, I don't think I'll ever forget the last 3 months of 2005. And
oh yeah, because it was a total self-destruction from a creative standpoint of a company.
Yeah, and everything else, it was just everything went wrong. Eddie passed away.
Even regardless of Eddie passing away.
Oh, I know. I mean, that's in addition to everything else.
Certain things in motion. But the point is, if that had not happened, they were still going in this direction, and they still. All that Jim Ross, all the Eddie stuff did was it made everyone forget about the Jim Ross stuff. They probably would have done that through the end of the year, and it would have been even worse.
That Taboo Tuesday week?
Yeah.
The Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of Taboo Tuesday?
Oh, I mean, what a disaster, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what we can look forward to in 2006, but it'd have to be something else to top the end of 2005.
Well, they'll try.
And they've got head-to-head with UFC again, which is what really started everything, and that's coming up in a couple weeks.
I don't sense the overall insanity building up to that I did. Remember this last one where we could just see, even going in, before we knew the Mike Goldberg story, when Mike Goldberg, they tried to get Mike Goldberg to no-show the UFC, live show and all that. Even before that, I sensed that, you saw the whole thing every couple days, like one group would add another hour of programming, and then they'd have another special, and this. You could just see it was like going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And you knew that Vince would try something really crazy at the end because it's just Vince. I didn't know what it was, but I knew he would try something. This one I don't sense as much because I think that there's a certain perception that both sides have, whereas WWE really does know that, you know, UFC's really doesn't have that loaded of a show against them. And UFC, I don't think their heart's in the show. I think they're doing it because Spike put it there. You know, like, I don't sense that they're going, like, and I know they're not. You know, UFC's going like, you know, we're going to pull out all stops and we're going to be competitive. It's kind of like they're going like, God, we have to do the show on a Monday and we really don't want to, you know?
Yeah.
So, which is a great attitude to have when you're only about 5 specials in, right?
Well, Spike, I don't know. When I look at some of the decisions that Spike has made over the past month or so, I just don't know what to say. You know what I mean? You would think that people that are involved in the television industry would think a little bit more about the television industry, but it's like thinking that people in wrestling would think a little bit more about wrestling.
Yeah, you know they're putting they're putting the UFC specials from 10 p.m. to midnight on a Monday, so it's not even head to head.
Yeah.
Which is really, I mean, that's just to me I actually understand because their 11 o'clock show does better than their 10 o'clock show because their 11 o'clock show doesn't go on head to head with wrestling. But still, the idea that you're doing like a live special and you're doing it, you know, on a Monday night until midnight. I mean, to me, you know, why not do it from 7 to 9?
So this is 10 on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Okay, so are they still, is it going to be head-to-head on the West Coast? I assume it has to be.
No. They're doing tape delay on the West Coast. So it'll be West Coast feed, so it'll be 10 to midnight on the West Coast as well.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be head-to-head for an hour.
The first hour is head-to-head, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't understand why they just don't go 7 to 9.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what about New Year's Eve?
Well, you know, it's not as big a deal here as it would obviously be over there, but I'm very much looking forward to New Year's Day.
Oh, watching the pay-per-view?
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be an interesting show.
It's going to be one of those shows where I just hope it's not one of those prides where I think they've got, what do they got now? 12 matches or some ridiculous number?
So they're gonna edit. We're gonna miss 3 or 4 of them. But the one thing is the ones that they weren't going to show us, they're not going to show us Giant Silva and things like that.
Well, that makes me sad.
Well, then you're just going to have to get the tape from Japan because they got a 5.5 hour window to fill in Japan.
That's true, yeah.
So I mean, you can just go to the video store and get the tape.
And Boss Rutan is gone. That brings a little bit of.
Can you imagine? Think about this one. 4 months ago, if I had told you that Boss Rutan and Jim Ross would both be gone, you'd just go like, you know, are you trying to tell me both companies are insane?
Yep.
And as it turns out, well, Boss Rutan quit on his own. I mean, it wasn't as if, you know, I can't. I mean, what happened basically, I sense, you know, what happened was a misunderstanding in the sense of Boss Rutan was negotiating for a lesser schedule because he wants to spend more time. He wants to do more acting. He only wanted to do the big shows this year. And Pride went and, without telling him, hired Frank Trigg to do their special, which actually airs on Tuesday night. And Boss thought they went behind his back, and I could see that. And I think 90%, if not 95% of your announcers in the same situation would have just said, oh, well, okay, I'm kind of mad.
Yeah.
I really don't think too many would have quit, but he was the one who would and did. I mean, that was his call. They didn't want him out. You know, unlike Jim Ross where, you know, WWE made a call and they wanted him out.
Yeah. I will, you know, I don't know anything probably any more than anyone else does, but I think that this was a situation where some wires were crossed, perhaps some other situations over the holidays, something like that. I think that in 2006 at some point, hopefully early, he will be back. I just find it seems like such an irrational decision, you know what I mean, that there would have to be something more to it, and perhaps something that can be remedied.
Well, what about Stephen Quadros?
That was different. That was different. That was Pride deciding that he had sort of run his course.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
And
but they may be sitting here going, well, maybe Boss ran a score. You know, people can convince themselves of crazy things when they try.
Well, remember what the excuse was when Quadros was gone? It was like, well, you know, we just feel that he has peaked as an announcer, and he is, and you know, so we're going to bring somebody new in. And I thought, well, listen, it's just about the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They just seem to be hitting their stride, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then with Mauro Ronaldo and Boss Rutan, now it seemed like they finally hit their stride. Now Boss is gone.
Yeah.
So, if you're next on the list, Frank Trigg, do not hit your stride. Avoid it as long as possible.
There's another thing with Trigg too. Is like he's walking into a terrible situation.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's like like Joey Styles and stuff. You know, I will
the same situation Mauro Ranallo walked into.
Oh yeah. You know, I mean, the one. Okay, here's the one thing that Trigg has about Mauro Ranallo. Mauro Ranallo had a double dose because number one, he was following Quadros, who's popular, but number two, he came from pro wrestling, and the most vocal MMA fans hate pro wrestling. Whereas Trigg, at least, is an MMA fighter, so if he's fairly articulate, they won't hold that as much against him. Nevertheless, everyone's going to go. I mean, I can already see January 1st late at night. Oh my God, these announcers are horrible.
Yep.
I already know it. I can see it, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, anyway, we will be back with more. We'll start taking phone calls right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.
Golf clubs will never be the same.
For us to Figure 4 Weekly, we will start taking phone calls in just a second. Real quick, Brian, I want to get some picks from you for Saturday, New Year's Eve. We won't go through every match because there's about 25 of them. We'll go through a few of them. Hidehiko Yoshida against Naoya Ogawa.
Yoshida.
Agreed. Ricardo Arona against Vanderlei Silva.
You know, for a long time I was picking Arona, but in the last few days I have changed my pick to Silva. I think that Arona is one of the worst opponents possible for Silva, but when you have gone as long as Silva went, like 5 years without being defeated in your weight division, only being defeated once and by a heavyweight, and really in a decision that you could argue he got robbed, or at least it should have gone to him. I just think that means you're a good enough fighter to figure out how to beat a guy who beat you last time via decision. So I am going with Silva.
Arona, but that's a tough one. Henderson against Bustamante.
Henderson.
Agreed. Gomi against Sakurai.
Oh. Gomi.
Yeah, I agree. Sakurai could take that one, though.
Oh, yeah. In fact, there are a lot of fights on this show that could really go either way, but...
Speaking of one, Krokop against Mark Hunt.
I'm going with Krokop.
Agreed. Although I could see... when I visualize the fight, I visualize Hunt winning, but my brain refuses to pick against Krokop, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think that in a pure stand-up fight, I think that it would be very hard for Krokop to knock him out, perhaps impossible for all I know. And
although when they fought in kickboxing, Krokop won the match.
Yeah, but I think
these are also smaller gloves, which will favor Hunt because Hunt's a hard hitter, and Krokop's probably not going to knock him out.
Yeah, I think all on the feet. I think that Hunt would win. But I think it's going to end up on the ground, and on the ground it's a totally different ballgame.
On the ground, Krokop should win.
And I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Fedor against Zulu.
Well, let's see here. I've got to go with Fedor.
Sakuraba against Minowa.
I should bet against Sakuraba. I know it's terrible to say, but Minowa.
Yeah, I disagree. I'm going with Sakuraba now. Kondo against Nakamura.
What was that?
Oh, I just said I'm going to go with Sakuraba.
Okay.
Kondo against Nakamura.
You still there?
I'm there.
Sorry about that. Nakamura.
Agreed. Let's go to the other side. Kid Yamamoto against Genki Sudo.
Oh, boy. I'm going to go with Kid Yamamoto.
Okay, I'm going with Genki Sudo.
You're probably right.
Well, I mean, okay. Kid Yamamoto is the better fighter of the two. There's not a question. I just think that's just a lot of size to give up to a guy of the skill level of Sudo.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Royce Gracie and Hideo Tokoro. If Royce Gracie fought Hideo Tokoro, who was 180 pounds, that could go either way. But you know, and like in that one, I mean, I don't see any way Royce Gracie's going to lose that fight. And again, and the reason I say that is because you're talking about a 180-pounder against a 150-pounder. And, I mean, a great 150-pounder can beat a mediocre 180-pounder. But he ain't going to beat a really good, you know what I mean? It's like with Sudo, he's going to come in at 161 and probably walk into the thing at, 165, 168. and Yamamoto's going to be maybe 140, 145, and against a really great 165er, that's too much, I think. That's my thought. We'll see. I could be wrong. I mean, because Yamamoto is the better well-rounded fighter. Remy
and I mean, you have to also look at the fact that he is very small, and look at the level that he has gotten to at that size. So he's more than a great fighter. He's a real great fighter.
Oh, there's no question.
But he is also facing, like you said, a great fighter that's also heavier.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what, if he was only facing a pretty good fighter, I would go with him. I mean, no, Kid Yamamoto, I mean, he may be, pound for pound as good as anyone, because when you're giving up, I mean, when you're at that kind of a weight class, giving up, 25 pounds and or 20 pounds anyway, and consistently beating good people, which Kid Yamamoto did to get here, no, he's special. He's something. See if there's any other ones to go through.
Giant Silva and James Thompson.
Yeah, James Thompson's going to win that one.
Don't underestimate Giant Silva. We've seen a lot of Giants lately that have done very good for themselves, and he's training hard in MMA.
Bob Sapp against Musashi.
It's kickboxing rules, right?
Right.
Okay, Musashi.
Agreed. Okay, we'll start with callers now. We're going to go.
What about Charles Crazy Horse Bennett and
Ben Kaneko?
Yeah.
Charles Crazy Horse Bennett. Although he's not really that good, I'm just figuring, the other guy's an actor.
Well, he is an actor, but he's trained.
He's a trained actor. He's still, but
he's still an actor.
Well, I mean, it's his first fight against a guy who's fought a lot.
Yeah.
Even though he's going to go in with the size advantage. Bobby, you want to do actor? How about a comedian against Sumo? Bobby Oregon against Akebono.
Bobby Oregon did a damn good job last year, I seem to recall.
Oh yeah, he did, and I thought it was a pretty interesting fight. Of course, it's a different thing. He was going against a 200-pound guy who was easy to take down. And if there's anything about Akebono that is positive, is that he's not easy to take down.
No, but he once he's down, he's not easy to get back up.
No, he's on top. If you're on top of him, and the thing with him is that he's probably going to blow up.
Yeah,
which is why I would pick against him. But I don't know. Bobby Oregon, when it comes to stand-up fighting, I mean, I never saw it because with Ciro Obidi just took him down every time.
Yeah.
So we don't know what he's got. Not that Akebono's good, because he's not, but he may be better. And if he can't be taken down and he's better, he could certainly win.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bobby Oregon, though.
Okay, so will I. Okay. We're going to go to Tony in Saugus, Massachusetts. Tony, you're first up.
Hey, guys, happy holidays. Dave as well, happy Hanukkah like myself.
Oh, very welcome.
You're talking about Pride, and first of all, how many buys does Pride get on pay-per-view in the United States?
Not a whole hell of a lot. I don't know a number, though, but I mean, it's not nothing compared to UFC, nothing compared, it might be at the level.
How much does UFC get? Because they kind of keep their stats quiet.
UFC, a terrible UFC will do about 75. I mean, the one coming up with Couture and Liddell will probably do well over 250. I'm thinking the one in February.
And that's good.
Yeah, no, they're going to do a huge number. They're going to do huge money for that February 4th show.
And it seems like they're basically a gate-driven company. They get huge gates because all the hardcores go every time out.
Yeah, and they will pay through the nose. They pay those giant ticket prices.
Exactly.
Hey, Dave, what level do you think the UFC will have to hit before Dana White rescinds his previous comments and starts throwing out buy rate numbers?
I think that they'll never do it, and I'll tell you why. Because then they can keep the fighters' pay down. Because if the fighters actually realize how much they're taking in, they might get real mad.
You think if by just a complete...
No, let's say they did 300,000 every show.
What if they did 1 million?
Yeah. Well, if they did 1 million, it doesn't matter if Dana's not going to release it because we're going to know it.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't. Don't wrestlers in the WWE get 13% of revenues? Dave, I think you printed that at one time.
It's not a hard and flat rule, but they're usually doing about 12%. Yeah, and I mean those UFC guys are just getting.
No wonder. I mean that's how you stay in business. I mean WCW was probably at like 60%, and that's how, I mean. Give it to Vince. I mean, that's how he stays in business. He doesn't pay these guys anything.
He pays them better than the UFC.
That's true.
I mean, a lot better.
And my thing is, all the time I read about overseas And to me, what's keeping the WWE afloat is overseas and Hispanics. Am I correct in thinking
you're not wrong, and isn't that scary as hell? I mean, seriously, that's really scary. Because this thing, I mean...
Well, the Hispanic population's growing.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if they're. I think they're going to the events, and they're the buying consumer. I know they watch SmackDown in droves.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the thing on that, what's so scary about it is that, you know, I mean, TNA does exist, but there are still, you know, at a pretty low level of exposure, and in a sense, WWE is a monopoly promotion that, if it was just based on domestic, could not break even, and that's really scary. They should be. I mean, like, they're doing good, and I mean, they're not going to lose any sleep over it, but they really, when it comes to the United States, I mean, they really should be doing so much better, and I don't think they're really addressing it because they're doing so well overseas that it kind of, like, they can look at, when you add up the overseas and the domestic, it really looks pretty darn good. And,
right,
I mean,
and I think I've always felt overseas, they don't, and I might be wrong in this, but they don't have the entertainment options that we do in the United States, so they think the WWE is like the greatest entertainment option going. I mean,
well, you know what it is also it's newer to them,
right?
In a lot of these countries, because not so much UK, because UK, you know, they've been getting it since, you know, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s, but it's still a novelty in the sense that they're not always there. It's kind of like a rare thing when they come.
Yeah, it's not overexposed.
Yeah, but when you go to an Australia or something like that, they've just started going to. I mean, it's new. I mean, like, when our business was down here, you know, from 92 to 96, in Europe, because, in England especially, because it was such a novelty, they didn't know that this was a down period following Hulk Hogan and that the characters were bad. It was just professional wrestling, and they hadn't had, you know, the last thing they saw was Big Daddy, you know what I mean? So,
and they ate it up.
Bret Hart looked pretty good, you know, and Davey Boy Smith after Big Daddy. But, yeah, and again, like, to these new, you know, you go, let's just say a new country that really hasn't seen it, like we're comparing it to Steve Austin and The Rock in that era, when it's just nowhere near as good, but they're comparing it to nothing, you know, so it's just great, it's just great for them. So
yeah, it's just a nice, and also, what was I going to say, I was talking about England and, the ratings. To me, TV ratings right now mean absolutely nothing. To me, it's all about people that pay for your product.
I agree.
You know, because everybody can, hey, I watched the Raw, and hey, if it stinks, it stinks. If it's good, it's good. But to me, when you take out your money and you pay for the product, that's the big thing. Not if you watch a TV show once a week. Or that to me is nothing.
Or you know, here's the thing. Or you just have the TV on. It's like instinctively we watch the TV that we watch, most people, every week. You know, if you're a football fan, you watch football. You know, if you're a wrestling fan, you're going to watch Monday Night Wrestling. I mean, like, there are nights where I have Raw on, where if I was not covering Raw, I would probably still have Raw on, just because that's what I do on Monday night, but I'd also be reading a book at the same time, and, you know, unless it was something really good.
Multitasking, right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the thing is, like, yeah, if they, when there's a pay-per-view, you know, I also order all pay-per-views, but if I was not, you know, working at this, there would be pay-per-views that I would skip, and a lot of the B shows and the SmackDown shows especially, because they're not that interesting. And I think that's one of the deals there. So yeah.
Yeah, I just think TV ratings right now are absolutely irrelevant.
So they should support us, newsletter writers. Because when you write a newsletter, you watch everything.
Yeah.
My last thing, Ed Pereira had a terrific point. He said even though the WWE product is down, they still have that loyal audience. You know, like 238,000 on pay-per-view. They still have a very good loyal audience that I don't.
Well, you know, again, the 238,000 on pay-per-view, that's a worldwide number. If it was still if they were doing 238,000 in the United States, I wouldn't even be worried. But the point is, if you really look at the numbers in the United States and Canada, comparing this year and last year, it's like they look like they're the same or maybe even up this year, but that's only because foreign is so up. Domestic's actually down probably 25%, and that's a huge drop in a one-year period.
And my last question, Dave, very quickly is, every time I notice on your site, it seems like Canada covers wrestling more mainstream than the United States.
Always, yeah. I mean, when I went to Canada, I could have gotten on, you know, almost any, I could have probably gotten on their version of the Today Show. You know, I mean, if it had worked out right, and certainly on their TSN shows and things like that. And here in this country, not in a million years.
So yeah, it's just in Canada, I just think that's like big time entertainment. And every time I read your website, some Canadian newspapers talking about wrestling, and that just doesn't happen in the United States.
Yeah, it's much. And I think maybe it's because of Whipper Billy Watson and Bret Hart and people like that were wrestling stars that weren't looked down upon. Whereas in our country, the wrestling stars, even though like Hulk Hogan was huge, most of mainstream really looked down on him.
Right.
So I think that's kind of it. We got to hit a break, okay?
Thanks a lot. Great guy. Great job, guys.
Okay, we'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay. Welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. We'll be back with more right after this.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
Okay, welcome to the second hour here of Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. We also have Adam KLEINBERG from the Get in the Radio Show, who also has a book out called Mysteries of Wrestling Solved. And we'll be also getting to phone calls in the second hour. We got every line lit up, so we're going to start taking them in just a couple more minutes. We'll start going back to the calls. Adam, how are you doing today?
Good, Dave. I'm very happy you let us on the show, man. We've been talking about this for months. We just said, it means something to us to really come on this show. I don't know. It's just an honor to be on.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I guess, your book is actually a collection of, it's kind of interesting because it's a collection of interviews in a sense, but what it is that you have a bunch of different topics in wrestling, like who's the toughest guy or the Survivor Series or other things like that. And you've interviewed, many different people over the years on these subjects, and you kind of get, varying different opinions on all of these different topics. I mean, where did you come up with that kind of idea?
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen this, Dave, that, no matter what, the years may change, but it seems like there's a bunch of themes always over and over in the sport. Who's the toughest guy outside of the ring, or, what's the greatest match? We said, why don't we take some of these themes, go through some of the archives of the years, and add some new stuff. It's not like we just took a bunch of transcripts. I know there's some books out there now with just transcripts. What we did is we went, to about 75, 80 wrestlers, and took, new interviews of each and every one of them, and we put it all together, and, we tried to do something that we thought the fans would like. It's a lot like our radio show. We don't really keep our mouths shut during we try and lead these guys through it, as you probably know, Dave. I mean, some of these guys can talk and talk and talk, but they don't get to the point. So, that's what we tried to do here.
Well, who is your favorite, if you have to name a few, favorite people to interview on the show?
I think my absolute favorite is Steve Austin. I mean, for obvious reason, the guy is so charismatic, and, he's always got interesting stories. You get Steve Austin on, he tells you drinking stories and tells you stories from behind the scenes and fun things like that. But one good thing for us is it turned into a chapter. We were able to turn it into a chapter of why does Steve Austin hate Jeff Jarrett. And, it was something that he talked about on the air, and it was something that you wouldn't, look, somebody that reads your newsletter, certainly they know a lot of things behind the scenes. But to the average guy listening to the radio show, they weren't aware of things like that. So what we did is we tried to see, why does Steve Austin hate Jeff Jarrett, and we got Jeff Jarrett's opinion, and we got a bunch of guys who, I'd be curious to know what Diamond Dallas Page's opinion is on it. I know he's friends with Austin. I know he's friends with Jarrett. So that's one of those things. But I think Austin absolutely was my favorite. What about you, Dave? I'm curious to know. I mean, you get guys on all the time. What's the guy that you like the best?
Favorite guest? I don't. That's really a tough one. In the old days,
Kenny Bolin.
No, Kenny Bolin was among the worst. Jim Cornette actually is pretty. When you think about it, though, he's usually really entertaining.
Yeah,
he's up there. Raven was always very good.
Yeah.
Bret Hart is good on because we have a great chemistry.
Right.
Whenever Bret Hart's on, Mick Foley obviously because he's pretty much you can talk to about almost any subject.
It's certain guys, I guess, like you just say, with chemistry, it's who you work well with, and some guy may be entertaining as hell. One guy we met was Triple H, and we always thought, this guy has a sense of humor like we do, just when he was in the DX days, and we thought we'd really have a great time with him. It didn't work out that way, but, a guy like Sid Vicious, for some reason, we got along with him. A guy from Arkansas, 6'8", 300 pounds, I'm 5'5", I have nothing in common with Sid Vicious. I always got along with him.
Mm-hmm. That's it. We're gonna head to a break right now. We're gonna come back more with Adam Kleinberg, and we'll be talking about the radio show, the book, and start taking phone calls about current topics. We'll talk about a lot of current stuff in wrestling as well. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Hey, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, head of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're here with Adam Kleinberg of the Get in the Ring radio show is our guest right now, whose book, Mysteries of Wrestling Solved. It's got a bunch of different topics when it comes to professional wrestling, and a lot of different opinions on those topics, including, in some cases, my opinions on some of these topics. I don't even need to ask you what the most controversial issue when it comes to the book would be. So what's the second most controversial issue?
I don't even know what the most controversial
issue is. The first one's got to be the Survivor Series in Montreal.
Oh, yeah.
Because that one's going to be debated for the next 100 years.
You know what we enjoyed really putting together was the chapter, Is Hulk Hogan the best friend a wrestler can have? And I'm sure, I'm curious to know your opinion as well. You hear so many things saying, Hogan, he's the worst, he held me down, he this, he that. And one of the things we learned when we were doing the book is not everyone shared that viewpoint. And, we got a bunch of stories in there.
Bryan
was one of them.
Jimmy Hart. No, I'm just...
What?
It depends on the time frame. If you were in WCW,
yeah.
he did a lot of damage. He did a lot of good and a lot of damage to there. If you're in WWE in the late 80s, you had to be thankful Hogan was there because the guy was drawing, and I don't know that in the late 80s, I don't know. There might have been one or two people he held down. I can believe that, but it wasn't a predominant thing. But in the late 90s, that was a bad scene. That's how I kind of look at that one.
It's I guess as a guy who was getting older and afraid of losing his spot, and the loyalty that the wrestlers from the 80s have towards Hulk Hogan. Bobby Heenan was one of them. That they just they couldn't say anything bad about him. And a lot of guys said, look, Brutus Beefcake, he's not the greatest wrestler in the world. He's far from it. But you know what? Most guys would help their friends if they were in a position of power, whether they're in a big corporation or in wrestling. A lot of guys have said, it's the thing to do. And Brutus served a purpose. He traveled with Hulk. He kept him happy. And for Vince McMahon, that was worth any amount of money he paid Brutus. And I agree with you. When you go to the WCW days, certainly is a vastly different story. I'm sure Billy Kidman can, speak towards that. And now it seems that he's come around again. Now in the 2000s, Hulk Hogan's revered again by the wrestlers. I know a guy like Edge, you always hear him talking.
Well, Edge grew up idolizing him, and Hogan, Hogan, I think the whole deal is that if Hogan likes you, of course you're going to revere him because he takes care of the people he likes, and if Hogan doesn't like you, you're gonna hate him. But I think that pretty much goes with the territory with almost everyone.
Yeah. It's politics. Wrestling, for some reason, has more politics than politics. And it's one of those things, I said, it's themes that we go throughout the book. We could have made the Hulk Hogan chapter Triple H or anyone, but it really is, like an underlying theme is the politics and wrestling in that chapter.
Well, Triple H is a more interesting one in the sense of, with Hogan in the 80s, the one thing with Hogan is that, again, I mean, if you look back at that time, there was nobody else. I mean, he was the guy. With Triple H, certainly the last 3 or 4 years, I think that the deal is that you start questioning, should he have really been the guy? And again, with Triple H, there were again, we could talk about, Rob Van Dam and Booker T and people like that, where, I mean, he did, there's no question, he did hold a lot of people back.
Yeah.
And if it's Hulk Hogan holding people back, the bottom line is that there was nobody, I don't care who says what about anything. There was nobody in that period from 1984 to 1989 who put in the position of Hulk Hogan would have done as good as Hulk Hogan did as far as drawing the money. Nobody, okay? When it comes to 2001 to 2004, Triple H, you cannot make, I mean, he maybe no one else would have done better in that same situation, maybe, but I can't say that with certainty. With Hogan, I can say it with certainty, and I think that there's, with the Triple H thing, plus Hogan didn't marry Vince's daughter, so you don't have that aspect of it as well. And again, I don't know that Hogan, again, in the 80s, I can't think of anyone that Hogan really, I'm sure there's someone, but I can't really think of anyone that Hogan, in the late 80s held down. I think that in the 90s, again in WCW, I think he not so much held individuals down as much as I think he held a style down, in the sense that he was going to keep main events and he wasn't going to let a certain style become the norm style because he couldn't keep up with that style. Whereas in the 80s, I mean, it was all catered to him anyway, and, they were going to have to do his style because, he was the one who's drawing all the money.
And guys, we've got Adam on the line as well.
Okay, great.
Hey, guys, I just want to say the next sequel for our book should be, why does Dave Meltzer do Hanukkah/Christmas but takes off for TNA Unbreakable? What's going on? I'm surprised, man.
Oh, hey. The reason I'm doing Christmas is because it's, we didn't do a show last week because of Armageddon. We won't be doing next week because of Pride New Year's. And then we got New Year's we've got the New Year's Revolution from WWE. So it's kind of like, I didn't want to take 4 straight weeks off. That's just insane. So
yeah, but when you miss that week for Unbreakable, I'm like, I'm going to watch Rhino and Raven, and there's no TV even, Dave. What's going on?
Actually, I don't think I do most of the TNA pay-per-views. I think the only one, I think I only missed the only TNA one that we missed was the, what was the one? The one in, Bound for Glory.
I can't take the 6-sided ring, Dave. I don't know if it's just me. I cannot get past that.
Really? It means nothing to me. I mean, when they announced the 6-sided ring thing, and I'd seen it in Mexico before, and I'd seen it in Japan before, and I was just going like, why do you need to do it? It's just stupid. And other independent promoters had talked to me about, hey, why don't we do a 6-sided ring? And I just go, it's stupid. But you know what? Once they did it, it meant nothing to me in the sense of I didn't mind it at all. It's if the match is good, it's good. I don't care about the ring. That's just my feeling. I know a lot of people.
That's why you're making the money out of this.
It looks wrong for
them. Scrape by with some Christmas plugs for Adam. This is like Christmas Day. I mean, people's stockings are stuffed already.
Yeah, Dave, when you're talking about TNA, there's something I want to talk to you about. And
I'm doing shit.
You think WWE is kicking themselves for not signing up Samoa Joe? I mean, this guy, I've been watching wrestling for, 25 years now, and it's tough to really get something that I'm really into these days. I feel like I've seen it all. And this guy, he's got something about him. I just think he's phenomenal.
Oh, I love the guy. But, the thing with WWE, it's like they knew of him, but they're so narrow-minded when they look. I mean, it's the same thing with, the Mick Foley thing. It's like, they looked at him and just go, he can't be a star. And, I mean, it's like, I've always hated that snap judgment, cookie cutter. If you're not good looking, don't have a good body, therefore you can't become a star. Right. I mean, I hate that because so many people in all forms of entertainment, let alone professional wrestling, have not fit into that perfect mold and have become really big stars anyway. And I think that's
like one of our chapters is, was this guy really a cannibal? Was, the gimmicks, they're gone. You don't see a Dusty Rhodes guy. You don't see a Kamal anymore. And that's missing in the sport. And Samoa Joe's harkening back to that day, an age, I think. Yeah, he's a better wrestler than Kamal.
But, no, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. I think that one of the things that's missing, missing is like, Buddy Rose. You know what I mean? It's like a guy who has actually a terrible body, but that's actually to his benefit because if everyone else has a good body, having a terrible body makes you unique, and the whole key to getting over is to be different from everybody else and also be good at it. And, Joe, I always feel that, like with Joe, the first time everyone sees him for about the first 90 seconds, they just go, God, he's got a bad body. And then about 90 seconds into the match, the light bulb goes on and just goes, oh, this guy's great. And then that's it, and that's all you need. And I think that, I don't know why, I recognize that, 4 years ago. I mean, seriously, at least 4 years ago with Joe. And why, WWE didn't sign him. But then again, I don't think that they may even sit here right now. I think that they do sign him. I really could see them going trying to figure out a way to prove that he's not a good worker, because they kind of do that stuff too. We got to head to a break now. We'll be back with Adam KLEINBERG and Adam NUDELMAN as well as Bryan, and start taking phone calls right after this. You'll listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Bryan Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly. We're here with Adam KLEINBERG and Adam NUDELMAN of the Get in the Ring radio show. We also have a book out called Mysteries of Wrestling Solved. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think happened this year to Vince McMahon?
He likes to say controversial things to African Americans.
I think he's losing his mind. I just
can't believe he said that.
There's no filter anymore on him. It's just I watch sometimes, and it's like they never learn from their mistakes. And I know that the company's not going to go away. I know it's a public company, and the stock's actually done well this year. But they're just losing some credibility, I think, with the long-term fans. I know they've shown time again they don't care. But enough is enough at some point. I mean, I agree with the Phantom.
Controversy sells in a way where if it's made to be entertaining, it's interesting to watch. But so far, all the controversial aspects that he's pushed aren't entertaining.
I think that's an interesting. I think the part of it too is, I think that he's gotten to this point in his life. And I think that Vince has always been one of these guys, from whoever it is, going back to childhood, where he always wanted to prove people wrong, and that motivation actually made him a very successful man, was constantly proving people wrong. And I think that he's got kind of a hatred for people, and I mean, he loves to see people suffer, even if they're nice to him. I think he likes to see them suffer. And I think that what's happened this year is he's got so much money, and now with the dividends the way it is, you know what I mean? And it's gotten to the point where I think that this is almost it's become his play toy.
Yeah.
To get back at, whether it's to get back at a wrestler or get back at, society or get back at, the media or God knows what. I mean, every week when I watch Raw, I'm just going like, okay, this is where Vince is mad in his real life.
Perhaps if everyone else is suffering, he's feeling better.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
I don't know, his speech on the Afghanistan Raw, to me, I was just like, no one was challenging you right now. It's not like you have the thing with Muhammad Hassan where you were getting criticized. He's almost at this vendetta. It's 24/7, and like you said, he's just trying to say no one can tell me what to do. Well, that's great, but you're a 60-year-old man. You've achieved things that most people in the world will never even come close to. And I'm not saying he should just kick back in the sun and enjoy a few cocktails, but the guy is he's got to mellow out a little bit. Or maybe he doesn't have to, but I don't see why he wouldn't. What is he so angry about?
He's got a lot of built-up anger in him. There's always something to be angry about, and I think we're going to learn that every Monday night for the rest of our lives.
I don't know. Seems strange to me, and I just question a lot of the decisions. Not so much the talent decisions. I mean, I think I'm past that. I don't understand why Rob Van Dam wasn't given a shot. All the things we've been talking about for years. I just question why he wants to make wrestling look bad in that making racist comments, just beyond racism at this point.
Dave, I have to ask you about that. What do you think about Big Vito being signed a couple of months ago when he fired about 15 people, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, he's bad in the locker room. Let's throw some worms up his nose. I mean that was like, Big Vito is known to do that. Why would he sign someone when he's trying to cut costs?
I don't have any answers for that kind of stuff.
It's disgusting with the worms.
The worms. See, the worms thing. It's like I don't mind the boogeyman because again it's different. Yeah. But that segment, to me, what was so bad about that segment was, I mean, they were trying to make this guy throw up because, as punishment, it's like, punish him on your own time, you know what I mean?
Right. We have to watch it.
I spent $35 for a pay-per-view to see matches, not to see some guy get, to see Matt Hardy and Vito get humiliated, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that
was like the number one thing I think they screwed up was Matt Hardy. I mean, he had this underground following. He had a really cool chance to become like the Brian Pillman, for lack of a better word, of the 2005, 2006, and they just wanted to punish him.
But that was the whole thing. That's why, it's like when he came back, I mean, there were two things they could do with him, and one is take advantage of that, and the other is to get mad at him over the fact that he got over after being fired and kind of made them look bad in a sense because people were going like, they fired him unjustly. And what happened was that, no matter what anyone says, that very first match at SummerSlam, I mean, that's all you need to know. I mean, like, I don't even think Matt Hardy really understood that. I mean, he was probably told, well, it's the start, and he did end up winning the cage match, which was a hell of a match. But then after the cage match, I mean, that's been it for him. I mean,
right.
his
the thing that I read in your newsletter a week ago that it really struck me was the Undertaker being angry that Hardy didn't want to, get put to the choke slam. And I'm thinking to myself, you're the Undertaker. It's not your reputation and your status in this industry is not changing whether you squash every single guy on the roster or not. So why does it help anything? I mean, I think Matt Hardy's right. Locker room etiquette aside, I think Matt Hardy's absolutely right.
I think, what's funny is you said that is that role, okay? I mean, because I actually just watched the end of that thing because they replayed it on Friday Night SmackDown. So then I saw Matt roll out of the ring. I was actually looking for it. And I was thinking, like, they have all these guys in there, like Spanky and Paul London and this and that. And it's like, of those guys in there, Matt Hardy, it's like for I'm not saying he should have, complained about it because, you're not really not supposed to. But at the same time, of all those guys there, it made, especially with Matt being a babyface, it made no sense for them to ask Matt Hardy instead of asking, Brian Kendrick or, right. One of 20 other guys, to go in there. He was like the biggest star out of all those guys that ran in. So what is the need to squash him other than to let everyone know? I mean, the whole key of that, to me, the whole key of that was that Matt Hardy at Taboo Tuesday got more votes than Rey Mysterio and more votes than JBL, and he snuck into an angle because of the fans, because they decided they were going to let the fans vote. And the fans told them that we actually want Matt Hardy to be a star, and they were mad about it. Like, oh my God, it's like we left it open to you fans, or we told you to vote for JBL and Rey Mysterio, and God, you didn't vote for him, so, and you voted for this guy more than even Rey Mysterio of all people. So we're going to show you that you do not run the show. And, there's Matt Hardy got in the match, was in there with Masters and Snitsky. They had a good match anyway. And yet, when all said and done, did that help him? No, it hurt, it hurt him because in their mind, he's not a top guy, and they've jobbed him ever since.
Yeah, let me ask you, Dave, when you were on IATA, which is a sore subject with Sir Adam and myself, when you were on IATA, you had WWE guys all the time.
Yes.
What is the mentality when they go through a peak and a valley of, like, loving the Internet, hating the Internet? What do you think goes on in their minds when they said, is it somebody saying, let's let the floodgates go, let's get some more publicity for us? Is it McMahon's call? I'm very interested to hear.
I was, as far as this show goes, I was always told it was Shane McMahon's call, and it was because so many of the guys were voluntarily going on, because we never got anyone through the office. We would just call the guys up, and some of them didn't want to do it because of me, and most of them did. Most of them did it, and when most of them were good guests, and it was a positive for the company in that sense, but I think they didn't like the fact that,
wasn't there 1 week where everything went down, like we suddenly stopped getting books and everything else too?
As far as, I remember that everything, I remember, being told that, when they made the thing where you have to go through the office now to get guests, and it was just, and then I was told it's so we can monitor whose shows they're doing. These guys don't do it on their own, but it will make no difference to you whatsoever. You'll be having the same guys. You just have to go through the office. And of course, we never got another guest after that day. Yeah. And I knew we weren't. I knew it was a nice way of saying that. But as far as my relations with the company, nothing changed then, other than we couldn't get guests. But what happened was after Mania was it 2002? I think that they realized that their house shows were about to go in the toilet, and they wanted to hide that. You know, somehow, how you can hide that, don't ask me. They think they can hide that in 2002, that their house shows are going in the toilet, so that's when they decided to, like, cut off all relations.
It's interesting. I mean, because I remember 2003, all of a sudden I get an invite to go to the press conference in New York. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Now it's going to be like the dawning of a new, internet decade, and that was it. And you never heard back from them. When you try to go through the office, you get double talking. And they called us for Edge's book, and that was like one of the last times we ever heard from them.
Yeah.
Well, it's something that makes me think, Dave. Obviously you've had a relationship where Vince McMahon, you've dealt with him in the past, and I know you've alluded to it and you've written about it. Has there ever been a time where you considered going to work for him? I'm sure they must have wanted you. Well,
it depends what you mean by that. But I did the thing in '87 for a little while, but I never considered that going to work for them. And
they obviously this business more than most people, that are on their payroll, and I'm sure there will be a place for you there. Is it something that you burned a bridge with them in their mind, or you just wouldn't want to deal with the nonsense we've been talking about for half an hour?
I love what I do.
Yeah.
But the other part of it too is the reality is that I don't think that they would want. I don't think they would want me there. I think I would last about a week.
Yeah.
If I was lucky, maybe 2 hours. More likely 2 hours. And I mean the other thing too on that is that I do with Vince. I always figured with Vince, there's always going to come the day where he'll change his mind again, but it won't be until someone is beating him. Or putting a scare into him. And then at that point, then things will change. But I think that when Vince is no longer in power and Stephanie's no longer in power, I think that no matter what, that day will never come. Because I think that there's different level of, different thing. I think that Vince is in the end will do business with what he perceives to be people he hates, whereas I don't see Stephanie being that kind of a person. And their hatred's pretty deep. Anyway, we're going to head to a break right now. We're back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Hey, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer News. With Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and we're here with Adam KLEINBERG and Adam NUDELMAN of the Get in the Ring radio show. And we're going to now start heading to phone calls. People have been waiting since the start of the show. Go to Ed in San Antonio. Ed, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Happy holidays to everybody.
Thanks very much.
Since you just brought up Stephanie McMahon, is there anything to these little internet rumors going around regarding Christy Hemme?
I don't think so, because if you look at the timing of everything, it makes no sense, because the story is supposed to be that it had to do with Triple H, and think of how long it's been since Christy Hemme. Batista and Triple H would have been together on the same roster. You're talking about not WrestleMania, but the month after WrestleMania was when Batista switched sides. So whatever this was, we're in December, although she was fired in November. But the latest this thing could have happened would have been in May. So it doesn't add up, and Christy Hemme hadn't been on Raw in quite a while. I'm not saying that nothing happened, but, if something were to have happened, I mean, it happened a long, long time ago.
Okay, and also earlier in the show you were talking about how bad the booking's becoming, and I'm thinking tonight would be an anniversary of a very simple angle that turned into one of the biggest money-making feuds, and that was...
Oh, boy, Freebirds Von Erich's 32 years ago tonight, right? Or 22 years.
Wow. That's why you get paid the big
23 years ago tonight, right?
You remember
that
stuff.
It was in
82. That Christmas, boy. Actually, I was at the reunion arena the next Christmas, by the way, to see Flair and David Von Erich.
Yeah, it's too bad. I used to like well, I didn't actually see him live. I'd see him when they would show him on TV after the weeks after, but it was always good when it was wrestling on Christmas. And another real simple angle that you brought up in the Observer the other week was that everybody remembers was Randy and Bill Mulkey against the Gladiators.
Isn't that amazing? That was because it wasn't even meant to be anything big. It was just some spot that Dusty Rhodes came up with for a quick pop on TV, and here it is. I'm trying to remember what year that would have been. That would have been 86, I'm thinking. Maybe I think it was 86 because it was the Crockett Cup in New Orleans.
It was I think it was for the second one, actually.
Because back then that never happened. I mean, just scrubs never won. It was just amazing to watch that.
Right. And but the thing that was so funny was that everyone who saw that will remember that angle to this day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was Randy and Bill Mulkey were jobber tag team, always lost, always got destroyed, took great bumps. I mean, they got over, people they became this cult thing anyway, and then all of a sudden they won one match, and then they were at the Crockett Cup. It was, I think, in Baltimore. So you're right, it would have been the second Crockett Cup. The first one was New Orleans. So it's 87 would have been the year. And at that Crockett Cup, they came out, and I mean, with the exception of, the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, I mean, they were as over as anybody on the whole show.
It makes me think back of the Pistol Pez Watley angle. Probably three people wouldn't have heard of this, but, when he beat Buzz Sawyer.
I think that's still the best thing I've ever seen. Right?
What's that?
He beat him like 3 times in a row on TV, right?
Yeah, it was great. JYD smacked him in the face, and all of a sudden he beat Buzz Sawyer, and he said, well,
Steve, you're making Sir Adam's day here that someone else remembers this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, one of the new favorite things that Phantom and I do is we try and play Guess Who's Off the Steroids these days when we watch WWE.
Oh, geez, that's what me and Bryan do, too.
Here's my number one champion right now.
What?
My champion right now of my game is Snitsky.
Yeah, well, that's everyone's champion.
All right.
He's a cruiserweight now, I
think. Well, what's funny is Triple H in WCW. I don't think they call him cruiserweights. I think it was light heavyweights. But I just remember when he was like a top contender for the light heavyweight championship.
Yeah.
Ed, anything else?
No, guys, that's all. Thanks for taking my calls, and good luck getting the ring crew. I do listen to your show. I think it's pretty good, and all the success to you guys.
Pretty good. Awesome, right, Dave?
We're going to go to LeVie in Yonkers. LeVie, what's going on?
Steve, how are you?
Doing great.
Speaking of jobbers, what happened to Barry Horowitz?
God, he's living in the Tampa area.
Still doing indies, isn't he?
What?
I think he's still doing indies.
He actually drank too much Morphoplex one night.
Rare, but yeah, I think every now and then. What were we saying, Adam?
No, I said he drank too much Morphoplex. I heard you can't mix that with vodka.
I remember I was so excited because there weren't too many identifiable Jewish wrestlers back before Goldberg, and you were saying that jobbers never win. And I remember watching the superstars like half-heartedly. I'm like, oh, okay, Barry Horowitz against Skip, and when he won, you have no idea how excited I was. And they used to replay it on again like an hour later. I think it was syndicated and on USA at the same time. It was pretty much the same show. So I ran downstairs and I taped the show, and they even made a T-shirt, Horowitz wins, with like the whole picture on the front. It was very exciting back then.
One of the best matches I've ever
there were some
seen.
more Jews in there. That's crazy.
One of the best matches I've ever seen was at the Nassau Coliseum. It was S.D. Jones versus Rene Goulet. And the reason I loved it so much was I knew one of them had to get the win. And S.D. pulled it out, so I was very happy at that.
Oh, okay.
But what I was really calling about, I was wondering, what would it take for the UFC to make the heavyweight division a money-drawing division? What are...
good heavyweights!
What would somebody like Heath Herring cost? The last year he had one fight where he got kicked in the face on K1, and he hurt his leg and he disappeared. I think both for his career and for the UFC, to pay him like $200,000 a fight would certainly be worth it. What's he making now?
I don't know, but he's fighting in the K1 on Saturday against Yoshihiro Nakao. I know that.
The last time he fought was, I think, March. And then he got hurt. He signed before last year's New Year's, but he got hurt. So he had one fight the whole, in the whole year.
Yeah, UFC, I think when it comes to Heath Herring, because I know it's come up because when Pride let him go, there was talk in UFC of taking him, and I think the idea is they don't want expensive guys. And I mean, that's why, that's their deal. They don't, and that's why their heavyweight division is what it is. They had a chance to have Mirko Krokop. Granted, it would have only been for one shot, but things like that, they've turned down that stuff because they don't want to spend a lot of money on guys.
I think they could eventually, because if people aren't watching Pride and K1 here in the U.S., like you could convince them that what you have are the best heavyweights. but you just have to make sure to hold on to them. If, somebody becomes a champ and then they go, let's say Arlovsky, however many fights he has left on his contract, if he leaves as the champion, then, people know something is up. But if, people aren't really getting big exposure to Pride or K1, so they don't know that there's other top heavyweights out there, you can eventually turn it into a money-drawing division.
Well, people believe Arlovsky is the real deal, but they don't believe in any of his challengers. That's the problem right now. And, there's no one believed in Buentello, and no one believed in Justin Eilers, and I don't even know who the next guy they're going to put him in there with is going to be.
The problem is they have to get more than, 2 fights for a guy before they send him up against the champion, because you have no idea who they are.
Yeah, and they also have to look impressive in winning, which nobody really has so far. Or, impressive enough to beat Arlovsky, and Arlovsky's got an aura to where a lot of people, especially after the Buentello fight where it was like a one-punch, and the Eilers fight where it was, totally one-sided.
Hey, good to see you. I heard about that stuff.
Now, I know he would never do it, but Sakuraba, he walks around about 185.
Yeah, probably about maybe a little heavier now because he's trying to get bigger, which makes no sense. But he's trying. I think he's probably walking around maybe close to 195 now.
Do you think he could be competitive at 170?
If he had if he mentally wanted to be, that would have been his. Put it this way: the guys who fight at 170 in UFC are naturally bigger guys than Sakuraba. Matt Hughes is a bigger guy. Trigg is as big a guy. St. Pierre's probably a naturally bigger guy. Riggs is a naturally much bigger guy. So yeah, the 170s are bigger guys than him. So yes, he could do it if he mentally wanted to do the cutting weight. But he's got this mentality. He's got a mentality that's really weird. And a lot of the Japanese have it, and that is that the idea of going down in weight is a sign of failure, even though everyone else does it. So their idea is that they will challenge bigger guys all the time, and that's why, Sakuraba's record isn't as good as the quality of fighter that he is, because he's always challenging bigger guys.
It may be worth more money to him to stay up there, but I
don't think it's so much more money as much as the pride, as the situation of his own pride and ego of saying that, like, if I go down in weight, it's like I'm admitting, that it's like I'm somehow quitting, because Sakuraba never quits. If there was ever a fight he was going to quit in, it was that Arona fight when the referees wouldn't stop it, which was ludicrous. And he went out there and he just took a beating that no man should ever take in a fight.
And my last point was about house shows. Now, when you think of it with a concert business, how many acts, no matter how hot they are, can keep coming back to a town month after month after month, but the show's still doing well. The only modern group I could think of is Dave Matthews Band or something like that, where they have that staying power. But if WWE would get off the road, when the product isn't super hot, and hype it up, for when they return every 14 months or something like that, to where it's special, even if the product isn't that hot, you could still do decent at the gate, and the guys wouldn't get, burned out.
Do you think Edge has the potential for that, Dave?
What?
To be a big, a guy people pay money for? Because I've always think, the last couple of weeks, I think Edge has the potential for something like that.
If you put him in the spot and push him long enough, then you'll know. You never know until, there's a lot of guys who I thought, for sure could have, and then when they were there, they didn't, and then vice versa, were guys who, I go like, I don't know if they can draw on top, and then they end up doing it, so you never know. Edge,
to see him against Michael Hayes nowadays.
They should have done something. If Michael, you know what the problem was? Michael really was out of shape, though. If Michael Hayes was in any semblance of shape, they should have come back with that. But, of course, Edge is hurt now anyway, so you really can't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it for a couple months anyway. But, I like the idea of that Michael Hayes segment and then coming back with a match, except Michael Hayes wasn't in shape for a match, so you kind of were trapped there. And also Michael Hayes was standing for Flair anyway. He was reading Ric Flair's lines. Did a good job with it, though.
They couldn't just wait a week?
What, wait for Flair to do it himself?
Yeah. So you wouldn't have the problem of having Michael Hayes come out and cut the best promo of the year and have no follow-up?
Well, the thing with Flair is that he could actually, he could actually do this angle after, if his hearing is up on his hearing's on January 12th. So he could do it, do this thing. Then again, they're doing I think Flair's going to do the thing with Edge on tomorrow night anyway.
Oh, that's right, the Cutting Edge.
Yeah. So maybe he'll be able to say, maybe he'll be able to say something. But we'll see what he's allowed to say and not by his lawyer, and then and what direction they script the thing to go.
Not to guide your show at all, Dave, but I'd like to ask Bryan Alvarez what his dealings with our, mutual publishing company were. Do you love them as much as we do?
Of course I love them, but to this day, I have never spoken to anybody there.
Really?
Never. No, I have not had one conversation with anybody there. Artie Reynolds has
spoken to Michael Holmes.
Yeah, you've spoken more to my publisher than I have then.
Consider yourself very lucky, right, Sir Adam?
I'm not saying a word.
Artie Reynolds handles all that. He is a great, great man.
It's a Christmas night. Nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening. We got a full bank of calls, though.
I guess somebody's listening. Maybe it's ECW Press, but we love them.
Okay. I'm hearing music. We'll be back with our last segment right after this. You'll see Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Hey, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, head of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, Adam Kleinberg, and Adam Nudelman of Get in the Ring Radio. We're going to go to Kyle in St. Paul. Kyle, are you there? Hello there.
Kyle.
Kyle's not there.
There we go. Now you got me up.
Oh, hey, Kyle, what's going on?
Hey, is the UFC giving up on that TV special an indication that they've given up on a weekly live fight show?
I don't say they've given up on it, but my impression, the weekly live fight show, it certainly hasn't been talked about that much. I remember for a long time it was like that we needed a weekly fight show.
Yep.
Now, I think that what scared them is the enormity when they realize of just doing a monthly show, or maybe like 12 or 14 shows a year, and how hard that has been. And then you start thinking, well, if you do a weekly show, you're going to have to do like 58 shows a year between that and the pay-per-views, and I think that's, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I think that it's kind of, I haven't heard anything where they're pushing for it.
I think as long as Ultimate Fighter runs its gimmick and people are okay with it, it's a better star maker anyways.
It is, but the problem with Ultimate Fighter is I can't imagine like 4 years from now Ultimate Fighter still existing, but if you had a weekly fight show and it became an institution, like wrestling or the old Friday night fights used to be, and things like that. That thing can go on for years and years.
Well, I think some sort of version of Ultimate Fighter I can see taking place in 4 years.
Really? I just think it's going to be one of those things where, it's like any show.
Well, I know, but you can do different because it's kind of like wrestling where you can always introduce new personalities. It's not like you've got the same, like a sitcom, you've got the same characters and they can only last so many years, but if you've always got a fresh new supply.
There were a lot of years of real world's done a lot of different seasons and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, to me, like, even year 2 was kind of getting boring until the end of Ultimate Fighter. So, maybe, obviously, season 3, because of the coaches, I hope the ratings are up. Season 4 will be very interesting. I think season 4, the idea is to bring back a lot of the guys that you already know.
Yeah.
So, we are, running at the end. Anything, Adam, anything you guys have?
Just want to say thank you very much for letting us on, but everybody go out there, buy the book. We're two wrestling fans that have a dream of doing a radio show and writing a book, and I think anyone that reads it will appreciate this if they're a wrestling fan.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. That was Adam Kleinberg and Adam Nudelman, whose book is Mysteries of Wrestling Solved. And it's out at bookstores. I've been at some bookstores charting what...
Hey, it's your buddy Lug.